What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Inside Inter Miami, the Miami Herald show about all things soccer and your favorite South Florida global brand soccer team with all its megastars. We're back for another episode, joined as always by Michelle Coffin. I am Andre Fernandez, talking a little bit about where this team is at as they continue their preseason tour so far, which is about to hit a big one as they go to Lima, Peru to take on Universitario and take on 80,000 fans that are mostly going to be wearing Messi jerseys, cheering him on, cheering on the superstars. But we'll see. We'll see where the loyalty lies in this big crowd. But a big crowd that sounds like a lot, but we're kind of used to seeing from Inter Miami at this point with Messi. We're going to get reaction from guys like Noah Allen, Fede Redondo talking about the reception that they may get. They think maybe he might get a little better reception than they had in Las Vegas. We all know about the gesture, about the little taunting, the things that were going on there. So we'll dive into that. And then what's next on that rest of this America's preseason tour? Panama City coming up, a trip to Honduras after that, and, of course, the finale against the longtime rival Orlando City in Tampa. And then we'll talk about a few other things like the whole business about Neymar now supposedly not coming here, probably, looking like he may end up going somewhere else. We'll talk about where that destination is. Tata Martino, also a finalist for a coaching job with Brazilian team Botafogo. So we'll explore the connection there, why he may end up there, the former Inter Miami coach. And 500 days to the World Cup. It's sneaking up. It's still a long way, but starting to sneak up. Michelle had a chance to write a little bit about what the host committee is doing in terms of setting everything up. We'll dive into that a little bit. And some shakeups within the front office at Inter Miami that Michelle has found out about and is ready to report, has reported by the time you're watching this. So we'll dive in all that stuff. But let's start with that trip to Peru, Michelle. 80,000. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but we're getting used to these giant crowds when Messi's around.
Yeah, we keep talking about it. It's a traveling show. It's Taylor Swift. It's a Broadway show. It's, yes, it's a soccer team, but it's also a spectacle. And for the people of Peru, they have not seen Messi play there. This is a really big deal. And it's going to be the same in Panama City and in Honduras. For all the fans there this is their chance to see Lionel Messi up close. This is their chance to see the GOAT in person. They watch him on TV all the time. And now that he's coming to their country, he's coming to their city. It's a really, really big deal. I mean, it really is like a concert tour. And they are expecting a full house, 80,000 people, in Peru and Lima against Universitario, which is, by the way, they call it the U, just like University of Miami. It's the U, Universitario. And
Don't tell me they do this. Don't tell me they do something like this. I was going to say.
Maybe they should start, though. Maybe they could start.
That'd be funny.
But anyway, they have 28 titles. It's a very good, kind of a storied Peruvian team going up against Messi, Suarez, Busquets, Alba, and everybody else on the team. They're expecting a great atmosphere. I'm sure it's going to be chaotic when they arrive. There's going to be people on the streets. There will be people outside the hotel, people outside the stadium. Reporters talked to Fede Redondo and Noah Allen and asked Redondo, what kind of reception is he expecting from Peru for Peruvians? And also specifically, do you think that the reception will be different from the jeering and taunting that Messi got in Las Vegas from Mexican team America? Here's what he said.
Esperas entonces de esta primera oportunidad? Evidentemente vas bajo el cobijo, digamos, de Lionel Messi, lo que significa para toda esta gente tener la oportunidad de verlo jugar, quizás algunos por primera vez.
Bueno, supongo que va a ser un ambiente muy cálido, con todo lo que genera Leo en todas las partes del mundo, pero sobre todo en América Latina. Y después en base al partido, lo que es el fútbol latino, ¿no? Muy aguerrido, un partido complicado como lo ven diciendo todos.
¿Han visto algo de Universitario o todavía no han llegado a esa etapa de la preparación?
Acá como equipo todavía no, supongo que hoy ya arrancaremos y en lo personal sí, es una persona que sigue mucho el fútbol latino y sabemos la clase de equipo que es Universitario.
¿Esperan un ambiente diferente en Perú quizás? Porque obviamente con Club América quizás hubo unos cánticos hostiles, como dijo Mascherano el otro día, pero como universitario en Perú, yo soy peruano, la gente está con entusiasmo porque quizás es la última vez que van a ver a Messi en tierra peruana.
Sí, obvio, creo que bueno, que en toda América Latina, quizás por rencor o por otra cosa, el único país que no disfruta de verlo a Leo es México, pero creo que Perú va a disfrutar de la fiesta y de lo lindo que es que ver el mejor del mundo.
Wow.
I
So
like how
some
he said
harsh
that.
words there. Some harsh words
Yeah.
there for those who don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Fede Redondo said, the only country in Latin America that doesn't enjoy watching Leo Messi is Mexico.
Yep.
Because of the bitterness. He said, because of the bitterness, el rancor, the bitterness, that the Mexicans are the only Latin American fans who don't enjoy watching Messi, but he thinks that Peruvians will enjoy and appreciate watching the best in the world. He said that he's expecting a very hot atmosphere, a very excited group, a very enthusiastic stadium. And as far as the team itself, that, he knows from following Latin American soccer that they're going to get a really tough test against a very good Latin American team in front of a very passionate crowd. So yeah, he did not mince words there, saying that the only Latin American country that doesn't appreciate Lionel Messi is Mexico. Ouch, ouch.
So don't expect this. He could do it, but no, not this time. Not likely.
He is not likely to do
That's
that.
reserved.
No,
that's reserved for Mexico.
Yeah, it seems like it'll be a more friendly atmosphere. And then Noah Allen, in English for the English speakers, Noah Allen was also asked about what he's expecting, and do they ever get tired? Is it kind of a pain to have so many fans and people around all the time? All the hordes of people that show up. And here's what he said.
Very excited. Very excited. I've never been there, so definitely want to go check it out a little bit, and obviously play in front of a big crowd, nice stadium. It's always exciting.
Going back to last preseason, it's still crazy, what Messi brings to this type of games. What do you expect? You went to El Salvador last year, going back to Latin America this time around, a couple of stops, but the first one in Peru. It's still surprising when you guys get there and you see how much excitement there is around it.
Yeah, doesn't really surprise us anymore, but it's definitely cool, and we're grateful for it, that's for sure. We try to take it in and be as humble as possible, because there's a lot of fans always showing up at every game, but especially when we go to those type of countries, get bombarded at the hotel. So instead of trying to see the negative of it, we try to see the positive, how cool it is and how grateful we are that, not only are they going to watch Messi, but just the team in general.
It's an interesting question because you always wonder how they see the traveling circus themselves, especially the players like Noah Allen that aren't the huge names. You know what I mean? So that was interesting.
Yeah. And he's this is a local guy from Pembroke Pines, 20 years old. A few years ago he was on a youth team, and now all of a sudden he's traveling the world with Leo Messi and bodyguards and motorcades and all this stuff. But it's going to be this tour. Will continue to be, again, the countries they're going to. They've chosen this time, which I think we touched on it last episode, but in more detail here. Last year they went on a preseason tour that, in hindsight, was a little bit crazy. They went to the Middle East, then they went to Asia, they went to Hong Kong, they went to Japan. They traveled 25,000 miles or so. They did 7 games over 5 countries. It was really kind of crazy to do that for a preseason. This time, they are going to 3 countries, 3 foreign countries. They're going to Peru, they're going to Panama, they're going to Honduras, but they're doing each as a one-day trip. So they are literally, for those fans who think that they're going to be hanging around over there, they're not. Unfortunately for the people of Peru, Panama, and Honduras, they're gonna be in and out, but they're flying in for the game. For example, for the Peru game, they're flying in. They're going to play on Wednesday against Peru, and then they're flying right back immediately after the game. They will train back in South Florida on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They'll travel. Sunday, they'll play in Panama. They will fly again immediately after the game back to Fort Lauderdale, and then they will train in Fort Lauderdale until they go to Honduras. And again, it'll be a one-day they'll go right after the game, fly back. So they're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, which is still a lot of travel on the airplanes, but it's not as far. And also they will have some days at home where they can just their beds and train in the regular training facility and not deal with all of the ancillary things that come along with being Lionel Messi's team, which is all the different media requests, the sponsor requests, different, VIPs in each country that want to have a few minutes with Leo. If they just go in and out for the game, they don't have to deal with all of those requests. And there are a lot. There are a lot of requests when Leo Messi travels.
Yeah, this one, it's handled more as business trips, you could tell. And you called it a little bit. I think it was a lot of bit crazy last year. The way it was a spectacle. Like you said, it was a little bit. It was a tour stop for the game and also for appearances and all sorts of stuff like you're talking about. So it's good because that really burned. I think it did to a degree burn them a little bit before the season even started last year. So they're trying to be I guess they're trying to be a little smarter about it, manage it a little better. So in that sense, it's good to see while balancing the demand, obviously, that a guy like Lionel Messi brings, and not just Messi, but even the other guys, the Alba, Busquets, all of them. The demand that this team always is going to be under for as long as this exists.
Yep. Well, for this year, for 2025, and then 2026, we'll see who's still there. I know that they want these guys to hang on through 26 because that's when the new stadium is supposed to open. It's starting to go vertical a little bit. They had to get permits to go vertical. So far, all the work had been horizontal. And my husband used to joke every time we would drive over or fly over the grounds where the new stadium is going to be. My husband would always say, "I'm not seeing anything vertical going on here."
Yeah, not
so
yet.
they are starting. They're starting a little bit of vertical now.
There's the signage is there. When you drive past the main street by there on the way to the airport, you start to see at least the signs there. But yeah, it's still a bunch of dirt and bulldozers for the most part. But it's going to get there, just like the World Cup's going to get here at some point soon. 500 days we've got there. We'll talk about that later on. But a big name as we talk about the future of this team, Neymar. Wah, wah. Is he not coming then?
Well, maybe not. They like to keep us guessing here. Okay, so to recap, all the talk was Neymar's coming. Neymar bought a property in South Florida. Neymar's building a house here. Neymar talked to CNN about how he would love to have a reunion with Messi and with Suarez. The three Barcelona boys come back together, the trio. So all of this was coming into place. He loves Miami. He goes to Heat games. He goes to, Miami Open tennis. He goes to throw out the Marlins pitch. So it looked like, all of the eggs are in the Neymar basket for a transfer this summer. Now, the latest is that he's going to leave. Yes, he's going to leave Al Hilal, but that he's going to go, that his contract is going to be terminated there, but that he's going to go back to Brazil, to Santos. And so, but does that mean that he's not coming to South Florida to Inter Miami? Not necessarily, because he could sign a 6-month contract with Santos. That is yet to be known. What kind of contract is he going to sign? If it's only a 6-month contract until the end of June, which is when his contract in Middle East was going to end, then he would be available to then negotiate a contract to come to Inter Miami in the summer. So the big headlines this week, the past 48 hours, are he's going to Santos, he's going back to Brazil, he's going home, but the question is, he's leaving Saudi Arabia. The question is, for how long is he going to be in Brazil? If it's just from now through June, then he could still come to Inter Miami in June. So stay tuned. Not necessarily a want just yet.
Okay.
But it looks like he may not be signing here right away. It looks like maybe the deal that he's going to sign is a short-term deal to go back to Brazil, and then we will see what he does after that.
Yeah, I think the highest importance, I think, in my opinion, I think could be is the 26 factor, to kind of continue having a major name on this team after Messi hangs it up. after these guys scatter, if they do, however it turns out, to have a name like Neymar. Now, of course, there's going to be questions. Is he still Neymar at that point? He's had injuries, all that sort of stuff. But that's stuff you take if you can bring in a name like him at that point, especially after you lose, after you lose the franchise, after you lose Messi.
Yeah, the other thing I was just thinking about, this just popped into my head, but I think it makes sense, is that if they sign him in June or July, like they brought the other guys in July, if you recall, Messi came in July, Busquets came in July, Alba came in July. That means they only have to pay half of the annual salary. If they bring him on now, they have to pay a full year's salary, a full season salary. I don't think the way the team is constructed right now, I don't think they have the money to pay Neymar right now. But a summer transfer is a different animal. A summer transfer means you only pay from July through October or November, wherever, I guess they're planning to go all the way to the final. So, you're paying half the season instead of the full season. And so financially, if they can afford to pay half of Neymar's salary this year, and then at the end of 25, if a couple of these older guys move on, then they pay him the bigger bucks for 2026. So maybe he works out a deal where Santos, of course, the Brazilians would love to have him come back there, even for 6 months, do a 6-month stint. Back home, you're the hero, you're the god, you are Neymar. Brazil will go crazy for 6 months. And then maybe he still comes to join Messi in the summer.
Well, you figure Suarez comes off the books, and maybe some other money comes off the books, and then there's a little more to play with at that point that you're talking about. Instead of they wouldn't. It makes perfect sense not to bring him on right this second, right at this point in the season, to then eat that huge chunk of money even more. That financial flexibility, and we won't get into the MLS salaries and things like that. We know it's like even more complicated.
You'll all fall asleep. Everybody will just fall asleep.
Everybody will be hitting the X button. X button and getting out of here. We don't want that.
Talk about MLS. MLS finances
we do not want that.
Very complicated. All we can say is there are restrictions. MLS has a lot of restrictions. Because of that, they have to be very smart about how they allocate their money. And I think maybe a half year of Neymar makes more sense than a full year at this point.
For sure. All right, well, switching gears, our old friend Tata Martino, former Inter Miami coach, finalist reportedly for the coaching job. Speaking of Brazilian team Botafogo, which has an Inter Miami connection. Former captain Gregor plays there. Gregor, did I say that right?
Yeah, Gregor. Okay. Gregor. Yeah, I mean, which, by the way, we loved him. He was a great guy.
He was great, right? I remember hearing you say that always.
Yeah, he was always a great guy. He was a wonderful locker room guy. He got along with everybody. He got along with the media. Whenever the media asked him to do anything, he did it. I mean, just a wonderful guy. He's playing at Botafogo, and Tata Martino is, according to all the reports in Brazil and in Argentina, by the way, he is one of the 3 finalists for that job. Now, if that comes to pass, maybe it won't. Maybe his name is just being thrown in there and he's not going to take it. If he does end up taking a job right now, then all of this talk of that he left here for personal reasons, I'm sorry, but that's not going to fly. The personal reasons may just be, I don't agree with how things are being run right now. Therefore, I'm going to leave. That is a personal reason. Or maybe he had a personal disagreement with somebody in the front office or somebody on the team. But it doesn't, if he starts coaching again this soon, it would appear to me, and it would make sense, that he didn't leave for some, very serious thing that he has to attend to in Argentina or something like that, or a health issue, if he jumps right back into coaching 2 months later. So I will be very curious, just from an Inter Miami perspective. I mean, in general, I hope he does coach again. I really enjoyed working with Tata. Again, a class act. He really treated the media with a lot of respect. I don't know if I mentioned this back when he did his press conference, his farewell, but he said that the only reason he did a farewell press conference, he said normally he would have just walked out on a job and they would put out a press release and say Tata Martino has parted ways with the team. He said the only reason he insisted on doing a press conference was the respect that he had for the South Florida media. He felt that we treated him with fairness and with accuracy, and it's something that you don't see that often in soccer. To be honest, soccer fans are very passionate around the world, and the reporters are also very passionate around the world. And sometimes a lot of rumors just get thrown around without fact checking. And he really appreciated the way American reporters, and he said the same in Atlanta pretty much, that, the American media treated him with respect and that they at least tried to be accurate and tried to check on things and didn't just throw everything out there. So because of that, he said he felt that he owed the media a press conference face to face to answer our questions about his departure. So that's kind of unheard of. And it tells you something about what kind of class individual Tata is. So I do hope that he gets back into the sport. I think he has a lot to offer the sport. He has a lot to offer whatever team is lucky enough to get him. But if he does come back to coaching right away, then I think the personal reasons that he left may have just been personal reasons with Inter Miami, not personal reasons with something else. I don't know that we'll ever know the truth on that. Yeah.
Right. It kind of brings up those suspicions, those rumors again of what really went on there and why, which makes sense to us. But like you said, probably won't know the exact details of what went on. But we wish Tata well, and hopefully, let's see whether it's there or somewhere else. Let's see where he lands if he decides to keep on coaching. But there are other potential front office shakeups, I think, in the works.
Yes.
Inter Miami. Fill us in, Michelle. What's going on behind closed doors over there?
Right. Well, again, for those who were speculating that Messi's people, maybe forced out Tata or something like that, now there's more fuel to the fire of that. Who's really running the club? Is it Messi? Is it the ownership group? Or is it Lionel Messi who's running the club? And the reason that is now going to be asked even more is that Raul Sanyehi, who was brought in as president of football operations last April. He was brought in as president of football operations. He worked at Barcelona, didn't work that closely with Messi, but he did work at Barcelona, came in as director of football operations. He has just been reassigned. Now, he had kind of taken over some of the roles. They said that he was not going to take over the Chris Henderson role when he got here. However, as the year went on, it was his quotes that were in the press releases about player acquisitions, not Chris Henderson's quotes. And, it sort of became, from the outside looking in, it looked like Chris Henderson was having a more of a behind the scenes role, and Raul Sanyehi was going to have the more front and center role about football operations, even though Chris Henderson still had the role of sporting director. Well, Chris Henderson leaves to go to Atlanta. The assumption is Raul Sanyehi is now running the show here. Well, not so fast. It turns out that Raul Sanyehi, without any announcement or anything by the team, sometime in the past few weeks, Raul Sanyehi was reassigned to a new front office role where he will be working in the Coral Gables business office, not in the Fort Lauderdale team facility with the players and the coaches, and he will no longer be involved in sporting decisions. He is not going to be involved in sporting decisions. That role is now being held by a gentleman named Guillermo Hoyas. Guillermo Hoyas is a friend of Messi's, somebody who was Messi had called him his godfather in an interview at one point. He was Messi's academy coach way back in Barcelona. He was very involved in the very beginnings of Messi's career. He was brought here to the club when Messi came. I heard his name, and I heard that they hired Messi's guy, but Messi's guy was being hired to work in the academy. So Guillermo Hoyas has been working in some capacity in the academy. He is now in charge of sporting director. Basically, sporting decisions and roster decisions are now being run, from everything that I've been told. Those decisions, those roster decisions and personnel decisions are now being run through Guillermo Hoyas, who is Messi's guy, and Raul Sanyehi, who maybe is not Messi's guy, who is maybe more Jorge Mas's guy, is David Beckham's guy, is working in the front office, in the Coral Gables office, which is where the rest of the leadership of the team works, but not with the team. So was this all orchestrated by Messi? We don't know. One last thing, which I am, still trying to verify whether this is true or not, and whether it had any bearing on this or not. The team people that I spoke to said it did not have any bearing on this decision. But Tom Bogert, who's a reporter who has some very good sources within MLS, reported that there was a heated exchange of words between Leo Messi and Raul Sanyehi on the player team bus in Las Vegas during this recent trip. That Sanyehi apparently got on the bus, which was a players and coaches only bus, and that he got on that bus and had a heated exchange with Lionel Messi. Now, I was told that, if that happened, that had nothing to do with any of this reassignment, because the reassignment was when Chris Henderson left for Atlanta. They did some rearranging. This is what I was told by competent sources, reliable sources, that when Chris Henderson left for Atlanta, they did some rearranging, and they put Guillermo Hoyas in charge of more roster building, and Sanyehi to move to the Coral Gables to be in charge of the overall football operation. So decipher that however you will. But Guillermo Hoyas is Messi's guy. Messi's guy has gone from working in the academy to working in scouting, and maybe he was doing scouting within the academy. Maybe he is a great talent scout. I don't know him, so I don't want to judge. But he is Messi's guy, and Messi's guy is now in a new role, and Raul Sanyehi has been moved to Coral Gables.
All I know is that it's good to have on your resume if you work for Inter Miami. The top bullet item should say, "I'm one of Messi's guys." If you've got that, you're in good shape.
And an Argentine passport.
And that's
Messi's guy.
Clip that
and
onto
an Argentine passport. Yeah, when you send in your resume for a job application with Inter Miami, if you have an Argentine passport, and if your top bullet point is one of Messi's guys, you at least, I'm not saying for sure you'll get the job, but you may be considered ahead of other people, because
you'll be a finalist.
The ownership, you'll be a finalist. The ownership certainly is, and Jorge Mas did not deny, when Tata left and they brought in Javier Mascherano, who has zero experience at the club level and zero experience with MLS. When they brought him in, Jorge did say that they consulted Messi. They did consult Messi, and their feeling is Lionel Messi is the greatest player in the world. He knows what a good coach is. He has seen good coaches. He's seen bad coaches. He's seen everything in between. And so they do rely on his opinion. The question is, are they just asking for his advice and consultation, or is he pulling the strings?
Right.
That's what we don't know. And that's what everybody can really just speculate. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's just offering advice and consultation, which would make sense. Or is he the puppet master pulling all of the strings? That's what we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he he has at least some influence. I mean, we've seen it in sports before. I mean, people have always said how
look at Jimmy Butler now. Look at LeBron James.
Yeah, well,
NBA
LeBron for a long time was, everybody made the joke and still do that he was the Lakers GM, and there's been quarterbacks in the NFL before that have done that. Yeah, Tom Brady and others.
I'm going to go to this team if you bring this guy and that guy, or I'll re-sign another contract extension if the team does X, Y, and Z.
Right. So it's not that.
Players, it's not unusual.
When you have a player of this caliber, with not just interest from the team, but so much interest from the league itself, and all these
And
corporate
from the
sponsors. I
fans
mean,
and everything, the
everything.
corporations, he's
Right.
bringing in 300 million. He is the
Yeah,
cash cow. He is the cash cow of this team. He is
exactly.
the biggest thing to ever come to MLS. He's the biggest thing to ever come to Inter Miami by a million. So they want to consult him.
Right.
They want to
Of
know what,
course.
and they want him to be happy. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
If Messi's happy,
Yeah.
the teammates will be happy. If
The
Messi's
engine keeps running.
unhappy, they don't want him to be unhappy. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that they necessarily give him everything he wants, but they certainly want him to be happy, and they are going to consult him because of his expertise. And he
Right.
does have expertise in this field. When you are the greatest player of all time, it makes sense for the club to consult with him. The question is, do they just consult with him and then make independent decisions, or is he calling the shots? That's what we don't know.
Right. Well, if he's happy, the engine keeps running. Things, you would think keep running smoothly. And I'm curious to see how Mascherano pans out. I mean, I think it's one of the biggest storylines, obviously, of this club going forward. I mean, we got a small taste of it in the first preseason game. I'm curious to see if maybe what we talked about last week, that familiarity with the way players are, what their tendencies, what their likes and dislikes on the field, knowing that, having played with some of them, if that will factor in and maybe compensate for the lack of experience to a degree, maybe. I don't know, but it's something to follow.
I agree. And the other thing is that he has more of a he was a defensive midfielder and a defensive. He's very tuned into the defensive side of the game,
Right.
from a back line and also from defensive midfielders like Boosie. Whereas, Tata was an attacker. Tata loved to attack. Tata was an attacker as a player. And he was an attacker
that was
as a
the
player.
weakness.
That's what his mindset is. And that was a weakness on the team.
Exactly.
So now they have a coach who has no experience. He has
Right.
no experience with anything, but he does have experience as one of the better center backs and central midfielders, defensive holding midfielder. That's his position.
Mhm.
And that's his area of expertise as a player.
Yeah.
So if that is a weakness on the team, or if they've got Busquets but weren't using him properly, maybe Mascherano will be able to use him properly, and this will all work out.
A defensive strategy that didn't work out basically cost this team their season last year against Atlanta. And now it makes perfect sense if you bring in a more defensive-minded coach, defensive-minded approach to the team that's already got tons of firepower on the other side of it. It's fixing that part of it. If you fix that part and this becomes a complete team, look out. It might actually work at this time. This time it might actually work, and they may get to where they ultimately want to get to.
And I think the defense is especially important because you have Messi and Suarez. They are not going to be sprinting the full field back and forth for 90 minutes.
Need those
they are
back
not.
guys,
But Mascherano knows that. Mascherano knows that because he has played with them.
Right.
So he knows to compensate for the lack of defense and sprinting back that you're not going to get from those guys. Here's what we need to do to compensate for that. So maybe it will work. It is very curious how it's going to work out. We will see.
We'll see.
We will see.
And a big we will see, jumping further ahead. And as promised, we're going to talk about that. We have now hit the 500 days to go milestone benchmark. I mean, of leading up to the World Cup. So, Michelle.
498. It's actually 498.
Now we're 498. Okay. When you wrote it, it was 500.
Right, but the countdown is on.
Yeah.
The countdown is on. It is 498 days to the World Cup.
They already have the clock going with the seconds ticking away, I bet.
Yes, I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
tell us about the preparation.
It's crazy, but it's almost around the corner. I mean, 18 months away for the biggest sporting event, and it's going to be held in 3 countries, United States, Mexico, and Canada. 48 teams, an expanded field for the first time. It's going to be the biggest World Cup ever with 48 teams. It's going to be across 3 countries. Here in Miami is the Hard Rock Stadium is hosting 7 games. 7 games will be hosted here, 4 group games, and then a round of 32, a round of 16, and the 3rd place game are all going to be held in Miami. So I did a story about the Miami host committee and what's going on with them right now. What are they focusing? What challenges do they have? One of the number 1 things that they are focusing on, which should not be a surprise, is security. after the chaos and debacle that happened at the final of the Copa America last July. For those who don't remember, I'm sure most people do, hundreds and hundreds of unticketed fans and some ticketed fans stormed the gates. And there were injuries. It was complete chaos. It was absolutely horrible. They just stormed their way into the stadium. It was, there was
ridiculous.
A lot of, it was ridiculous. There were injuries. There was a lot of damage, actually, structural damage to the stadium that had to be repaired. So now the World Cup is coming. That's bigger than Copa America. So
way bigger.
The security is one of the biggest things that they are focusing on. And they said that they're going to have a layered perimeter system, which they did not have here. They're going to have a layered perimeter system. So you won't even be able to get within the perimeter, within the vicinity of the stadium, let alone the stadium grounds. You're not going to be able to walk or drive onto the stadium grounds without a ticket.
Good.
You have to have a ticket. So if you don't have a ticket, you're going to have to go watch at the Fan Fest at Bayfront Park. Or at the other stadiums, you're going to have to watch at Fan Fest. You are not going to be able to get in the vicinity of a stadium without a ticket. So anyway, they are working very strongly right now on security. The other thing they're working on is fundraising, because they need to raise from the private sector. The city of Miami or county, Miami-Dade County, and the host committee are trying to raise $100 million to put on everything that they need to do that is not government funded. So the local government gives in-kind services such as police and fire protection and some of the stuff like that. But as far as the other expenses of putting this on and putting on a month-long fan fest and this and that, they're looking for $100 million from the private sector sponsorship. And the challenge, the people I spoke to who are in the committee said that they've been frustrated, is the word, frustrated with FIFA, because FIFA is soliciting some of the same sponsors as they are. And if FIFA gets a sponsor as a global sponsor, they are not allowed to be a local sponsor. So, for example, in Miami, which relies heavily on the cruise industry, the cruise industry is the largest industry in Miami. So there are large cruise lines that would like to be a Miami sponsor for the World Cup. And that would be a huge financial sponsor for the Miami World Cup. However, apparently FIFA is also soliciting cruise lines to be global sponsors of the World Cup. If any cruise line signs on with FIFA, no cruise line is allowed to sign on with the Miami host committee. You see what I'm saying? So also, for example, Uber, they've tried to get a deal with Uber, but if FIFA gets Uber as a global sponsor, they cannot be a local sponsor.
Yeah, they're basically getting blocked by FIFA at every turn.
They're getting blocked at every turn, and the only ones they can get is the mom and pop. Oh, well, you can get the local pizza shop to sponsor, but what kind of money is the local pizza shop going to have? So they need to get $100 million. They're trying to get
Uber, the big cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a fair fight.
Right. It's fine to get some local sponsors, and they want to get some of those local businesses, but they also want to get some locally located, local companies that are based here in Miami, but they're global companies based in Miami. But are they going to be a global sponsor? Or are they going to be a Miami sponsor? So anyway, they talked about that. They talked about a lot of the focus right now with 498 days to go is on security and on sponsorships. Those are the two things. Everything else from the fans, just so you know, tickets are going to go on sale later in 2025. Where the teams are going to be based, once they know the teams, then they can tell you where the team camps are going to be, which cities they're going to be in. The teams are going to be placed in clusters by geography. So if you are, let's say, I believe Argentina will be based in Miami. I just believe that because it would make every bit of sense. Of course, Argentine passport, you're going to get to be based in Miami. So what they're going to do is wherever the teams are based, their games in the first round in the group stage will be within a geographic cluster that's not too far, so that the teams and the players won't have to
Right.
travel so far.
Well,
Yeah.
we've seen maybe on a slightly, I don't want to downsize them because they're a big operation too, but like the World Baseball Classic, I think is an example where it's always been smart for them to bring the Latin American countries here. So your speculation's correct. If it's not it should be Argentina, considering all those other factors we talked about, but not just Argentina. I think the smartest thing would be to bring, if you can get a couple of Latin American countries here, it'll attract more fans. It'll be more of a spectacle. But the handling part, it was an embarrassment last time what happened, and obviously dangerous, all kinds of problems there. So, and I still wonder if it might have behind the scenes cost them having games here that were a little more toward the end of the tournament instead of pool round games because of what happened.
Well, they have the third round. They do have the bronze medal game.
They do have the bronze medal game, but
I don't know that
wonder
anybody cares that
I
much.
don't know.
Yeah, people don't care that much. Yeah, you're talking about like the semis or the final.
Yeah, it's one of those pivotal knockout stage matchups, possibly.
Yeah,
just speculation, but either way, it's one of the most important things. I'm glad that they're at least trying to buckle down better, and it sounds like they've got a plan in place that should work and avoid that nightmare that they had in the Copa America final, because that was insane.
Right.
We've seen it around the world, but it's just it was embarrassing for the city, especially when you're trying to host what's coming. So
right, exactly.
All right. Well, we're running a bit long on this episode this week, but we'll be back next week to talk about those latest two games for Inter Miami. By then, they'll have been played, where they are on the preseason tour, plus any news regarding any roster moves, any front office drama. Michelle will have it all covered at MiamiHerald.com over the next few days. And we thank you, as always, for watching the show on YouTube. You can catch it there or at MiamiHerald.com. And if you can only listen to us, remember, Spotify, iTunes, all those places has us there too. So for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening to Inside Inter Miami.